So welcome to my channel. For those of you who are new, welcome, welcome. We're going to be playing with these beautiful pit pens from Faber Castell Design Memory Craft, and we're also going to be playing with the gelados that are from Faber Castell Design Memory Craft. And you know, a girl can never have too many crayons in her stash. Am I right, ladies? You can never have too many colors. So that's what we're going to do today, is we're just going to get in here and get our fingers dirty and play with some of these techniques. We also are going to play with some brand new releases from Die-Namites dies. I was recently appointed to their design team, and I am so excited because their dies are so delicate and beautiful. Look at this, and they cut like butter. I mean, they are just gorgeous. This one is one we're going to play with tonight, and it's called Fragile Flowers. It's very dainty. And then this is the spring egg scene. Totally gorgeous. For those of you watching the recording, I will put a link to these down below for you guys on YouTube, and then I will also add these links to these to my website, so if you guys are interested in them. And you can go to Die-Namites, and it's DIE-NAMITES.com to order these. You have no idea how to use these? Well, you will tonight. And then this is not a new die, but this is one that we're going to play with a little bit tonight. I love it. The thing I like about Die-Namites dies is they all have a botanical theme to them. So you guys who have followed me for a long time know that I love layers, and I love dies that can be used for multiple purposes. And a lot of times some of these dies, you buy it, you use it one time, you never use it again. I don't feel like I'm going to have that problem with these, because they're, like I said, they're botanical, and they're awesome fillers for your sprays, your floral sprays. It's a nice way to add a floral touch to a card that you intend to mail without a lot of dimension. And as you can see here tonight, this card has a lot of depth to it, but there are no pop dots on here. It's very lightweight because all it is cardstock. So this is the project that we're going to make tonight, and look at all that depth. Look at how beautiful that is. So these are the dies that we're going to be working with tonight, and then, like I said, we're going to be working with this beautiful colors. When payday gets here, I will have the rest of the display, I promise. I mean, I was in awe today. Look at this. This is the flesh tone. Hello. 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 I'm in love. So we're going to play with these tonight. They are different. They are not just your average markers. When I had my boss with me today, he was so cute. He said, aren't those just like markers? And I was like, no, they're not just like markers. They could be, but they're not. There's so much more. So my nephew Cooper was here playing with me this weekend, and he came in here to play with them, and I was showing him some techniques, and he said, those are like Aunt Tonya's magic markers. I said, exactly. They're like magic because they have multiple uses for them. Am I frozen? It'll pick back up in a second. Okay, so I'm going to keep going for video purposes. If it's frozen live, we haven't started yet, so we should catch back up. You guys let me know whenever I'm not frozen anymore. Okay, so tonight what we're going to do is I want to start with a tag. So I've got one here, and I also have pulled out some remnants of, these are just pieces of tissue paper that I've had in my stash. I've used it on other projects. These are scraps. I have a tag that is pre-gessoed. It just saves time, and it helps to save a little bit of time to pre-gesso a bunch of tags and things like that. And what I typically do, just as a tip while people are signing in, is if I have a palette full of paint and you know, I'm at the end of the night, I have a bunch of these tags pre-printed or pre-cut out. I just wipe my remaining gesso onto these tags and let them sit overnight and dry. That way I already have them pre-done. I don't have to worry too much about it later on, and I'm not wasting any of that expensive product. So that's a tip for you guys. Another tip I want to give you guys is when you are die cutting these dies, they're very fragile, and I love to color these up with these pit pens and things like that, gelados and things. Well, gelados and pit pens need to have a prepped surface in order for them to color properly. So what I like to do is take a full 110-pound cardstock and I paint it with gesso, let it dry completely, and then I die cut my intricate dies. That way I don't have to worry about having to come in here and these little tiny pieces getting caught in, you know, when you're trying to dye, or when you're trying to paint over them, you know, breaking them off, because see, some of these stems are very fragile right through here. So this is already a prepped surface before I die cut it. So there's a tip for you guys. That was an important tip I wanted to make sure I got to you guys tonight. So for the first thing I want to do is I'm going to show you how many of these die cuts we need. I'm going to get 2 of the lilies, which is the fragile flower, and then I'm going to also die cut 2 of this flower, which was the heart bloom, and this is the fragile flower, the heart bloom. You need 2 of each, and then you also need 2 of the egg shape, and you want to make sure when you die cut the egg shape that you keep all of these extra pieces. So what I did was I die cut it 3 times just in case, because some of these pieces are teeny tiny and it's going to be very hard to find them later if they get unattached. So I'm going to leave them over here on my tray till I'm ready to play with them. And then for my banner at the bottom, I cut this sheet and it's approximately 1.5 inches by 3 inches. So that's going to be my title. And then for my title, I am going to use this stamp set, excuse me guys, from the Secret Garden. This is a Graphic 45 stamp set, and the stamp is the lily. It says Lily of the Valley Happiness. So I just thought that was really cute with the lilies on the tag. I've already pulled it out of the set, so I'm going to put that away because I don't need it again. And I just want to kind of quickly show you guys too. These are the other releases, some of the other releases that I have in my stash that came from Die-Namites. This is a filigree egg. Look at how gorgeous and intricate that is. Isn't it gorgeous? We're not going to use it tonight, but I just wanted to show it to you guys. And it's approximately 2 inches by 2.5 inches, or almost 3 inches actually. So it's a nice size egg for a card. Isn't that gorgeous? And then this is the spring grass, and it has the little eggs in it, which I was looking at this and thinking, you know, you could also just trim off the top piece and you would have a nice little grassy edge that you could use on something if it's not Easter. So don't dismiss this just because it has eggs in it, because you could use the grass. And then this is the other one that I got. I love this. This is the birdhouse branch, and I was looking at it thinking, you know, it would be so pretty under a photograph, over a photograph, you know, as a banner. You could also cut the little birdhouses out and put them into a flower garden. There's so many uses for this. These little teeny tiny birds, aren't they cute? And then this is, you know, it's a nice size die. So they all cut beautifully, beautifully. Okay, so we're not going to use those tonight, but I just wanted to show them to you. So to start with, my class runs a little bit different than most. I typically do all of my wet mediums first. Tonight we're going to be doing a lot of wet mediums, so it's going to be a challenge to stick to that plan. But what I want to do is I'm going to pull all of these little pieces away except for these 2, because the lilies we're going to use later. So I'm going to put them over here with the eggs. We're going to start with the things I have to mist, just because it takes longer for the mists to dry than anything else. So just so I don't have to spend all night cleaning up my surface, I have prepared just a little small blotter sheet of paper here. Now, on I want to go over this with these pip pens. Remember I told you guys that I like to pre-prep a surface. So this surface has gesso on it, and this surface is just plain. It's just plain cardstock. So I want to show you the difference in what these pens do when you color on just plain cardstock versus one that's a prepped surface. So the pip pens are India ink, and that makes them a magic marker on a non-prep surface. It's permanent, so if you wet it with water, it's not going to bleed. So you have a permanent marker immediately on a non-prepped surface. So everybody with me so far? On a prepped surface, however, it's completely different. On a prepped surface, see how it goes on a little bit lighter. It's still kind of moist. I don't know if you can tell that in the video or not, but it's still kind of moist. And until it dries, I have the ability to rub it with my finger, no water needed, to blend it. So you can get some really nice shading with these pens on a prepped surface. And the cool thing is they come in this array of colors that, just like you do with your Copics, you can come in with another color and blend it right in to make another color. Okay, let me get one with a little higher contrast, like maybe a blue. And see how they just blend beautifully together. See how it's starting to form and make a purple? But once it is dry, and completely dry, it is permanent. Okay? So now when I rub on it, nothing happens. How cool is that? So they are kind of magical pens. So tonight we're gonna play around with them a little bit. I do need to go ahead and color up a small section of this for our Easter eggs that are going to go on our tag. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut a small section of this. Tonight I'm not using any stamping ink. I'm only going to use these pens. So I'm going to color these up. Look at how beautiful and how blended that is. It's almost like a paint in a marker. It's like a translucent paint in a marker. And then, like I said, I can just take my finger and I can come in here and add some shading with just rubbing my finger in a circular motion. Isn't that beautiful? And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to use my Heidi Swapp Gold Lame color shine, and I'm just going to hit that a couple of times, and then I'm going to put this to the side for a few minutes and I'm going to let it dry, because we're going to punch it later and I want it to be completely dry when I try to punch it. Now put that to the side, and I'm just going to go ahead on with my next item, and that is going to be my my tags here. I really want my tag to have a sky, so I want some greens and I want some blues, but I think what I really want to do is play with my gelados for just a minute. I'm going to pull out, this is the gift box set plus a couple of extras and that I've collected along the way, and I'm going to pull out all of these blues because I want a variation of blues, and I'm also going to pull out a purple, because I think these colors all look really well together. And I want to give you a little tip about mixing colors, because I had this question asked the other day on the Artsy Attic blog. What happens, or why is it every time I go to use a pen I get brown? No matter what, I get brown. Well, the reason for that is because they're probably mixing cool colors with warm colors. And while you can do that, you have to have a transition color that is in between. So for example, if I have cool colors, which are your blues, you want to make sure that you have, if you're going to introduce a warm color like your oranges or your yellows, that you have a transitional color that goes between, that shares the two colors, such as yellow and blue make green, so you could use green to transition from blue to yellow. Does that make sense with you guys? And same thing with your reds. When you go from like a red to a blue, purple would be your transition color. And then by introducing a transitional color between the two, you don't get brown. So I hope that makes sense to everyone. That question was asked, and I wanted to make sure I covered it. But these are, the gelados are like a waxy crayon, and they go on a highly concentrated color. And I'm just going to add a few in here, some little sprigs. I'm not being real particular. I'm just going to mix between. And by adding these two colors, when I go to blend, I'm going to get a variation of color in here. So again, I'm going to take my darker color and put it down here, along with my purple. And then I'm going to come back and mix in some more of this lighter blues. See how it's picking up those colors? Isn't that gorgeous? I just love these. Maybe play around with the lighter here and add a little bit more of this down here. Now we've got a lot of really nice kindergarten-y, crayon-y looks right here, just scribbles on a page. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take my finger and I'm going to blend them. And as I go into these circular motions, look at how that just blends only on a prepped surface. On a non-prepped surface, it is a little more difficult, but look at how well and how beautifully these colors blend and start transitioning to become vibrant, beautiful goodness. Look at that. See how my blue is mixing in with my purple? It gives me that rich, rich, beautiful color of the sky. Now I'm switching fingers for the lighter parts up here because I don't want to drag that darker color up into the lighter color. I would lose that lighter value. I might want to add just a little bit just to give it a little more tone. But look at how vibrant that is. Look at how gorgeous the color is. And I've done nothing. I've added nothing to it. No water, just raw ink and my finger. Now if you wanted to tone that down a little bit, maybe it's just a little too bright, you can hit it with a little bit of color or water. That's just plain water in a water bottle. And now watch what happens. When I start mixing, I'm actually lifting the color off the tag. And that's where you can start getting some really neat, I'm just patting it, that's where you can start getting some really neat textures inside of your gelatos. Look at that. And it's just lifting that color. You can also blend it more and get a more pastel image if you want. This is just a paper napkin. And now see how I'm getting these really nice blotted texture pieces? Diane Reveley said don't fall in love with your background, and there's a reason for that. So we're not going to spend too much time working on that. The background needs to stay in the background. But if I wasn't happy with one of these blots, the one thing I like about mixed media is if you're not happy, you just go over it again. But look at how I've got these really nice mountainistic looking, colors coming into the background. See how gorgeous that is? Now I want to take and add back my die cut. So I have these die cuts, and really, truthfully, I put these on here not just for texture, but I wanted them to have that feeling of a flower in the background. And to be honest with you, you can't see it too much, but it's enough of a texture to know that there's something back there. It's not just flat color. Anne-Marie, I'm modding you again. Okay, so to get these down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of matte medium, and I have a palette. My palettes are usually the blister packs from packaging. I just have them cut down here on the bottom on under my desk, and I just like to leave them here. Now, the thing about these crayons is that they are not permanent until you make them permanent, which means I have to go over them with the matte medium to seal them or a fixative. They are still, can be reacted with water. And you will notice that when I start adding the matte medium to them, they will continue to blend with each other as well. So be real careful with that as you're mixing, and I'm using my fingers. I really believe that inky fingers are happy fingers, and this is why we were taught to finger paint in kindergarten, was so that we would make fantastic artists one day. So I'm literally just painting the matte medium over the top surface, and I'm just going to put my die cut straight down. Now my die cut has already been pre-cut with a gesso surface, so I will be able to add color to it too. And the reason I painted my tag before I put my die cut down was because I wanted these ridges around where I'm putting this down. I wanted those ridges to have that color without me having to do a whole lot of work to them. So all I'm doing is taking that matte medium and sealing that down. We're going to add more color to it in just a minute, so it's not so white. And then I'm going to take this one, and this one I don't want it to really overlap too much, because right here's where our egg's going to sit. So what I want to do is trim some of this off and use it on the sides. So I'm just going to pop that top right off. And I want this to kind of be right up here. Maybe, I think I did it like there. I'll just do it like this. There we go. And I'm going to cut this little guy right here off, because we could probably use him on something in a minute. Okay, so I didn't get a whole lot of that matte medium right here, so let's go ahead and put some of that right up here. And I've made this tag a couple of times now, but I'm going to tell you, every time I make it, it looks different. So it'll be fun to see what it looks like tonight. Cooper stole the one I made yesterday. Oh, well, he didn't steal it. He asked me if he could have it. I just love it when they come over and they want to play in my room. He probably knows more about pit pens than I know. Do you guys have little ones that like to come and play in your room too? Look at how pretty those pastel colors are. Okay, so I want that to dry before I add my next coat of gelados over the top. And I'm going to take these little negative pieces that I've cut off, and I'm just going to work them back in some of these other spots. I don't think I'm going to use this paper. I thought I might use this in the background, but I'm thinking now it's not going to work out. I don't think I have a big enough surface. If I were going to do this on a card, then I definitely might want to. And then one more, I have one more here, so I'm going to use it right there. I love it when I look at something and I see more than one thing. Like it draws me in and makes me want to look at it again. So I love paintings that have a lot of depth and texture, because it makes it, you know, once you see something, it makes you want to come back and look at it again. So I'm going to put this to the side and let it dry, and we're going to go ahead and work on some other projects real quick while this is drying. We'll come back to it in just a minute. Let's see how our other thing is doing over here. We'll put that over there. Everything that needs to dry will be sitting over there. Okay, so now I want to put this down here out of the way, trying my best to keep my work surface clean, because I want to touch some things that I want to stay white, and I don't want my fingers to be real dirty when I do it. So I'm going to just take some water and wipe them right up. And they're going to be stained a little bit, but that stain will come off later. Does anybody have any questions so far? Or Okay, so the next thing I want to do is work on my egg. And like I said before, you really want to make sure that you have all of the little tiny pieces, and this is the tedious part of the whole project. This die is a very intricate die. There's a lot of little tiny pieces in it, and they cut out like butter. They're so beautiful. So what I wanted to do was give it a little bit of depth. I don't think I'm going to need this yet either. I wanted to give it a little bit of depth and to play around a little bit with coloring it with different mediums. So I'm going to take my first one, put this one to the side because it's got a piece missing. I'm going to take my first one and I'm going to break out all of these little pieces. And I'm going to be very careful to make sure that I don't lose any of them. I want to make sure that they're all intact because we're going to put it back together again just like a puzzle. And you could use your, they're popping out. The problem is that this is gessoed, so they're kind of not wanting to let go as easily. But even these little teeny tiny pieces like this, you still want to hang on to those. The only things that you don't need to worry about are going to be the little dots that are in the center, because those are definitely not going to be used. So we're going to put those over there. They can go down to the floor and be swept up later. But these little pieces like this, you definitely want to make sure you keep. So I'm just going to work these little pieces out, and again, just be very gentle with them. You don't want them to break. Some of these little pieces are very fragile. I love this. The second I saw it, I had to have it. I mean, had to have it. Okay, now I have the base. This is my base. And I am going to go ahead and cover this entire base, including the flowers, every single thing. I am going to cover it with, I have a gold ink pad, and this has been in my stash forever. It's made by Studio G, and you could definitely use some of your Tim Holtz inks if you wanted to. You could use your Prima Chalks. Anything would work. I just happen to really like the color of this. It doesn't have a color written on it, but it's like a gold. So I'm going to color this entire image with this gold, and that's just going to give me a good base to start with. Be very careful when you're going over it that you don't tear those delicate stems on those flowers. But I just want it, this is going to be like my first layer of shading. Look at how beautiful that is already, just by itself. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, then I'm going to take my pip pens. I'm going to put these gelados up because I'm not going to need them again for a while. I'm going to take my pip pen, and I'm going to use today for my sky, I want to use this, is the light cobalt turquoise, number 154. So it's light cobalt turquoise. 154. I'm going to put this to the side, and then on this I'm going to color in the biggest piece first. And all I'm going to do is just take the pen and put it on there. No shading. Don't worry about all of that. Just color it up. You don't want to put too much pressure on those little tiny pieces. They will break. They will break off if you're not careful. And I suggest using a really thick cardstock. I used a 110-pound cardstock. The Georgia Pacific is the one I used. And again, for those of you who are coming in late, I pre-gessoed it before I cut it out. Okay, And then while it's still a little bit wet, because these are pre-gessoed, so it's gonna hold its moisture for just a minute, I'm gonna start working it into those little ridges. I don't want to see any white ridges on this at all, or fingerprints. I can always touch it up, but you know, I just want to make sure I get all of those little pieces all covered in, and I get a really nice blended look. Okay, so now this piece is the start of our framework. The next piece is, I got to figure out these negative pieces, and I probably should have colored them before I pulled them out of the egg, but I've only done this 3 or 4 times, so I should be a pro at it by now, right? But these little itty bitty pieces, I'm just going to put them to the side. I'm not even going to worry about them yet. I'm going to worry about the bigger pieces first. So in this case, we have these flowers. So I'm going to take my Pitt pen, and this one is Chromium Green Opaque, number 174. And I'm just going to kind of come down the edge of these flowers, and notice I'm not coloring the whole flower. I'm just trying to come up with some leaves, like grass blades. I want these to kind of get that feel of grass blades. Remember, these are Pitt pens, so as long as the surface is prepped, we can blend, and that's what we're hoping for. Then I'm going to come back with this next color, which is May Green 170, and it's just a little bit lighter. And I'm going to blend those two colors together. And see how I'm starting to get that nice shading, just like you do with your Copic markers. Now, you could color these with your Copics. There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't. I just like the look of these pens, because once it gets inlaid, I can come back and do some really serious shading. If you're really great at your Copics, you could definitely do the same thing. So I'm going to put this one to the side and do the same thing with this small piece. Again, this is the 174, and I'm just going to come down the side that I want the shadow, and then I'm going to kind of just flick in like these little feathered pieces. I really should probably come from the top, or from the bottom up, like that. Then I'm going to come back with the 170, which is just a couple of shades lighter, and I'm going to flick right back over that same area, and that's going to fill in the rest of the color. And put those two to the side. Okay. Then we're going to come back to our egg, and all of these pieces that are the leaves, we're going to do the exact same thing with those. So we have our tulips here, and we're going to add the darkness to the one side and flip back down. Be careful over this bunny. We'll come back to him in just a minute. Just stay away from him for a minute. And I'm going to really color up this side. I don't want to color the ridge of my egg. I just want to color all of these little negative pieces in here. And again, I'm just flicking up like it's grass. And when I get over my bunny, I'm going to be real careful and just flick into him just a little bit. Remember, this is the shading color. It's not the physical color. So I don't want to put too much in there, because then I will lose my highlights and shadows. And then I want to come do one side of this, which probably should be this back side, and then here. And then on these leaves, I just want to kind of flick in like I'm making the veins for the leaves. Same thing over here. And then I'm going to come back over here. Again, this is another set of leaves up here at the top. Shadows are going to be towards the bottom. This is actually part of the tulip, and so is this, or the lily or tulip or whatever it is. So don't color these two pieces. Now I'm going to come back with my lighter green and fill in those areas. And see how you can still see those blades of grass, and again, you can come up and really blend those together if you'd like. So I'm looking at the chat. Does anybody have any questions? Comments? You liking it? Loving it? What do y'all think about these dies? They're gorgeous, aren't they? Okay, now when you get over here to the bunny, don't color the bunny green. I don't know too many green bunnies. Don't get crazy. You can always cover him up, but that's extra work on an already tedious paper piecing. Oh, and don't color over your sky piece. Don't worry too much if you get into the egg shape like I did here. We're going to cover that up in a minute. I just don't want to spend too much time getting you know, I don't want to you don't want to color the whole thing. If you happen to run into it a little bit, that'll be all right. We'll cover it up. We're going to hide our mistakes. This is like the hardest part of the whole tag right here. It's all these little delicate pieces. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I'm going to pull it up. I still got some areas I need to kind of fill in a little bit. But that's why we painted it brown, because or the gold color, because then what you get is where you don't color completely with the green, you end up with seeing some of that yellow, and I think it adds a little bit more depth. So there's what it looks like. So you can really start to see the shading going on with the green pen. So if you want, you can always come back and add a few more little pieces here and there over the top if you kind of got a little crazy with the light green and it blended too much. Remember, this is going to dry permanent, so as long as it's wet, you've got time to play with blending and, you know, trying to erase some of your mistakes. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that at the moment, and again, I can always come back and add more to it later if I need to. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now it's time to start fussing with these little pieces. I know that this piece that's little that goes right here is going to be the green color, and it's right here, but I got to figure out which way it goes. So I'm going to go ahead and see if my tag, I need to start, before I go any further, I'm going to need to put this on the tag. So let's finish up our tag. It should be kind of dry at this point. I'm going to set this to the side, just slide the whole piece of paper over. That's why I did it on a piece of paper, so I wouldn't lose all these little teeny tiny pieces. So I'm going to come back over here. I might need to go ahead and hit it with the heat gun just a bit. Make sure it's good and dry. You don't want to add your gelados on top of this wet medium. I mean, I don't think it would ruin anything, but it's not going to get you that blending that you need. Did anybody have any questions? Everybody's watching so intently. The chat is not moving. Like, people are like physically watching this show. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, am I doing a good job, or have I bored you to tears? Okay, so I'm going to come back in here with my lighter color because I really want to add all of my colors back on top of these pieces. So I'm going to come back in with this lighter color because I want some variation in color. Here's the thing. Shadows happen behind things. So if the sun is coming straight down like this, you want it to be a little darker behind it because it's casting a shadow. So I want the top to be light and the back to be dark, which is why it's purple in the back. Okay? So again, this is a prepped surface. So as soon as I put it down, even though we put matte medium over the top, as soon as I put this down, that matte medium acts as my prepped surface. So here I am just adding another layer basically to the top. Now it is a little too light, so I'm going to come back with this color and just add a few touches of it here and there, and that's going to give me that little bit of a high contrast on that light color, but it's still going to be lighter than what I'm seeing in the background with that rich purple. And because we gelatoed this thing, the tag first, we don't have to spend a lot of time really beating the color down into those crevices, okay? Because we've already done the work. We did the hard part already. Now down here, these are lighter because they're up here in this lighter section. But down here, I think I want this to be just a little touch darker. And maybe just pull in a little touch of this purple on there as well. And because it's already on my finger, I can come in and just kind of add it again over here too. Okay? And don't forget what I said at the beginning of the show. You don't want to go purple to green, because purple to green is going to give you brown. But if I go blue to green, I will get blue to green. Because blue and green, purple has blue and green has blue, so those are, the blue is a transitional color here that helps you go without mud. It helps you transition into the color without mud. I'm trying to explain it where you will understand it, and I hope I did. I know it gets confusing and it's hard concept to get, but that's one of the biggest things I hear people complain about all the time, is that why is it whenever I mix my colors I only get mud? Everybody else gets these beautiful vibrant colors, but I get mud. Well, you're getting mud because you're going from a warm color to a cool color without a transitional color in between. I call them transitional colors. I don't know what anybody else calls them, but that's what I call them. So then I'm going to come back with my two greens that I had. And again, remember, I want the darker green to be closer to the bottom, so I may want to come back and add just a little bit down in here in the crevices. And then I'm going to come back with that lighter color towards the top. Now, I don't want this too light because I'm also going to have these lilies sitting on top, and I want my lilies to take precedence over this whatever's happening in the background, because your background should always stay in the background. It should never take priority over your foreground or your subject. Okay? But now, without a whole lot of effort, I now have my tag colored and my little pieces on top colored. And yes, I could have colored it all at one time. I could have glued those down first and then colored it. But like I said, I didn't want to spend a lot of time working color into crevices. So now I'm just going to come back with some scissors and trim this away. These are all the extra pieces that I don't need. And ordinarily I would tell you at this point you need to seal it, but I'm not going to seal it just yet because I do want to add some stamping, and I don't really want the matte medium on there just yet. Okay, so that's what I have. It has a really nice, I love that these gelatos, the wax that's on the gelatos gives it a nice sheen. Okay, now here's the cool thing. These pip pens go right over that gelato, and you can add even more shadowing. Remember, it's a prep surface. So if I want this to be a little bit darker, grab that pip pen and add that texture back into it. Okay? Don't forget, those are options. So these are kind of interchangeable. Say, you know, you only have a few colors of the gelatos, you didn't buy the whole set, or you only have a few of the pip pens. They kind of go hand in hand. And I love that you know, you can use one to shade over the top of the other. So cool. Okay, so let's go play with them in a different way. Let's use our pip pens as a stamp, and we're going to use our gelatos as a stamp too, because I want to show you guys how to do this. mixed media usually has a couple of little things in there that are stamped on. So I have a couple of these grunge stamps that I got. These are, if you don't buy any other Tim Holtz stamps, I swear you need these if you're going to do mixed media. This is from the Stampers Anonymous collection. This is the Ultimate Grunge. I love these. These are so versatile. You can use them on just about anything. And I'm going to focus today on, I really want these numbers, these dates, and I think I want this number as well. So instead of using my inks for this, which you could use your permanent inks, remember that what I said, that the Pitt pens are also permanent ink. So I have this brown here, and instead of using my you know, ink pads and things like that, I'm just going to take this Pitt pen and I'm going to color right over the top of the stamp. But the cool thing about the Pitt pen is that it allows you to stamp a couple of times, so you get a variation in color before it actually dries out. Oh, I got it upside down. Don't do that. So see how I'm getting the same effect that I would if I was using an ink pad. See? Now it's not an even stamp because it's a raised surface. So that's one way to use them. You can also use your gelados the same way. So in this case, I'm going to use that up here at the top. You can take your gelados and you can rub them right over the surface of a stamp. You can use a rubber stamp, a foam stamp, doesn't matter. I'm not sure if it'll work on a gel stamp because I haven't done that yet, like a clear stamp. But I'm just taking that same brown gelato and I colored over the top of this, and now I'm going to spray it with water. And once I've done that, I'm going to blot it just a second. I'm going to blot it on a paper towel just to get that excess water. The difference between the gelato and the Pitt pen is the Pitt pen is actually permanent. The gelato isn't. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. But look, you still get a stamped, you just get a different texture. So you can stamp with your gelatos, and you can stamp with your gelatos, and you can stamp with your Pitt pens. Isn't that cool? Now I'm not going to waste my time with the center because that egg's going to sit right there in the center. But I just wanted another little bit of texture and color in there. See how many times I'm stamping with this before it actually dries? I'm going to hit this with the heat gun. Now, ideally at this point, you would go ahead, I would suggest going ahead, if you have a spray fixative, and that could just be clear acrylic paint, it could be some kind of spray paint or whatever, you could do that, or you can come back over it with your matte medium and swipe it on there one good time, and then that's going to give it a nice finished look, and it's going to seal all those gelatos so they don't run anymore. So I'm just going to, again, come right in with my fingers, and I'm going to work this matte medium in. I'm being very gentle to the touch, barely touching, because remember that the gelatos are reactive to water and the matte medium is wet, so while it's wet, it's going to reactivate the ink from the gelatos, and I don't want to lose my vibrant colors. And I don't want to push those colors up into here too much, into this blue. So I'm going to switch fingers and go with another finger to do my blues so that we don't get a contamination. And the reason I use my fingers is because, honestly, I don't like to clean paint brushes if I don't have to. And I firmly believe that God gave us fingers for painting. That's my opinion. Now, notice some of this is wiping off. That's okay. Don't worry about that. Let's just get it sealed up. We can come back with our Pitt pens because they dry permanent, and we can add that color right back to the top of that surface if we need to. So we're sealing off those gelatos. Really nice. Isn't it gorgeous? You guys like so far? I'm going to wipe my hands because I really don't want too much of this ink on my egg. But while this is still wet, I'm going to take advantage of it, and I'm going to adhere my egg. So let me get my hands good and dry. and I'm just going to I'm going to add a little bit more adhesive to the back of my egg, but when I do that, I'm going to pay attention. I don't want to add adhesive to anything that I want to pop out. I don't want my bunny to be glued down. I don't want my flower bud tops to be glued down, and I don't want this piece here glued down or these pieces up here. So I'm really only going to glue the perimeter of the egg and the base of the egg. Does that make sense to you guys? And I'm just using some Tombow mono adhesive. Oop. And if you happen to squirt it out too much, just blot it on a piece of paper, because you don't want, the mono adhesive dries clear, but it dries glossy. Excuse me, guys, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cough in your ear, but I've got respiratory problems, so again, don't glue your bunny, and make sure you're only gluing the egg. You don't want to glue the stems of your flowers either. I'm going to get this stem because I do want it to hang to be glued down a little bit, and I'm going to glue across here. Now these are attached, so it's okay to go ahead and glue those, but I don't want these leaves because they're free floating. Okay, and I'm going to take advantage of this matte medium being here on this, and I'm going to go ahead and place my egg. Now I want to kind of cheat my egg up towards the top because I have all those lilies to put down at the bottom, and I don't want them to get hidden. But I also, at the same time, remember I have matte medium down. I don't want to glue all these extra pieces to the matte medium. So I'm going to be real careful when I poke this down, and I want to make sure that my flower tips are pulled up, as well as my bunny. And just let that sit for just a second. It takes some fussing because it is delicate. And you want what you want glued down, you don't want what it wants to glue down. Then you're going to come back with this piece, and this entire piece is going to glue down. So what I'm going to do is just take and dab just little bits. I love this mono adhesive because you can barely touch it, and it comes out, and there's very little, like a light touch will just put just the smallest amount out. The one thing I don't like about it is it does dry glossy, so you have to be real careful, but usually you can take a gum eraser and erase it right off, so no big deal. And then if you over glue it like that, just dab it onto a piece of paper off to the side, just blot it down and pick it back up, and then it has lifted some of that glue away. So this guy is going to go right in here. You just got to find the right holes, and you're going to poke them in. Just like that. How cool is that? Okay, now because we poked that in, our bunny and everything laid down, so that's no big deal. We're just going to take a pair of tweezers or a sharp edge like a little pokey hole here, or poke thing, and you're just going to pull those back up before they have a chance to glue in there. And don't rip it. Be very gentle with it. This is the part that I have trouble with because I want to force everything. And I'm just using my little poke tool to press those little fine pieces that are between the grass blades down. Pull my bunny up, pull that piece up, and then maybe pull this piece up. Just like that. Now you can already start to see the dimension that's happening here. You see that? Now, I'm going to wash my hands off because I don't want that sticky glue all over my hands while I'm trying to mess with these other pieces. Now, I'm going to come back down here and start building in my flower pieces. So, I'm going to put my glue down on my egg because I don't I don't want my flower tips to get any of this glue on them. So it's just going to be the negative place where the leaves and the base of the flower is. Don't glue in the flower, the head of the flower. Then using my tweezers, I'm going to pick them up and figure out which hole they go into. They should fit down in there relatively snug. Okay, so this one goes here. And then just press it. Down in there. Okay, that's that little guy's in there. Then let's do this one. Now the thing about the Tombow glue too is that if you let it air dry before you glue something down, it's like a temporary tacky surface. So you want to work quick because you want it to be a permanent bond. Okay, so those are all in there. That piece wants to be stubborn. And if it buckles a little bit, it's okay because you're going to cover it up with eggs a little bit. So now we can really see where those little tiny pieces go, and it'll make it much easier to deal with them. So I need to figure out which one goes where. This piece right here is going to go right in there, and that's the direction it needs to go. So I'm going to bring my mat back out here, and I'm going to lay it down on my surface the way it needs to go. And I'm going to go ahead and color it. So I'm going to grab my Pitt pen, and again, this is the 154 turquoise, and I'm going to color that little piece in. And then just like I did with the flowers, I'm going to apply glue to the hole. Grab my tweezers and stick him in there. Just like that. If your glue runs over, just pull it off. And then if you need to, you can always come back and add the color back on with your Pitt pen. You could probably glue these in and then color them too. I just like to do things a little backwards sometimes. Let's try it with that next one and see. So this one's going to be green because he's in the grass. So we need to get it going in the right direction. And it's not. Wait, it was. Or it doesn't go there. No, this one goes over here. See, that's the tricky part. You got to get them going the right way. Or maybe it don't go there at all. I don't know. Hang on. It's got to go here. I think I got it twisted the wrong way. My dog is at the door wanting in. She sees Mama in here. Yes, that's the way it goes. So we're going to put a little job of glue right there. She wants in. She's like banging at the door. She can see me in here. Okay, and then I'm just going to go over it with the lighter green. Alright, and then now we're going to go to this other piece right here. I think it goes this way. Yep, let's put the glue right there. This one I want to paint with the blue. She is having a fit. Get off of the screen, you crazy animal. Guys, I gotta let her in or she's gonna rip the screen off the door. Hold on. I'm sorry. Come in here. Oh my goodness, you're such a superstar. Go out. Keep her in here, please. Okay. Brock's girlfriend. She's a mess. We're working on our manners and her not jumping on people. Okay. So this piece goes in here. I'm going to have to bring her to see Rock one day. We are almost done, believe it or not. The next steps are going to come together so easily. Then this piece comes up here. This piece comes right here. And the reason you have to kind of take this apart to put it back together again is because if you don't, then whenever you do your gold, everything's going to get painted gold. So it's really the only way to color the whole thing the right way with one pass is to just take it apart and put it back together. But I think this is very relaxing for me. Some people might find it tedious, but I think it's very relaxing. Okay, so let's color this little guy right here in. Okay, now it's time. Okay, I want to take a little bit of gesso, and before I go any further, I want to go ahead and gesso the edge of my my card here, my tag, and it needs to be just a little dry right down here. It's all wet down in here. Does anybody have any questions? Rock isn't concerned with her manners, huh? Then I'm going to just take a brush, and it doesn't matter what kind of brush. My brushes are so rough. I mean, really. Just take one, and you want to kind of dry brush. You don't want it to be too wet. And I'm just going to dip it in that paint, and I'm going to give an edge to my tag. Just a light. This just kind of helps to give it kind of a border, a finished look. You could do it with the darker color too if you wanted to. I just really like the look of it, and it kind of helps to bring your eye back down to the center. It's harder to do this step after you've added after you've done the whole tag. It's kind of a step that you really want to do first. And I'm kind of flicking the paintbrush so that I get a few splatters in there, because for some people it might still be snowing at Easter. It's looking like it's never going to quit snowing for some of you guys. It was 83 degrees here today. It was so gorgeous. The azaleas are in full bloom. The dogwoods are budding. It's so pretty. Okay, put that to the side. We don't need it again for a while. So this is what a tag looks like right now. Now it's time to start adding some of that dimension and that depth in there. So this is like so easy. You guys are going to be like shocked. You're going to say, this is so easy. I've got this glue gun here, and it has a really nice thin tip on it. I don't recommend with these small pieces of doing it with a thicker tip. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back these buds, and I'm going to put a little spot of glue right there. Okay, and I'm going to roll around my glue gun until those strings let go, but if they don't, you can always get rid of them in a minute. And I'm going to blow on that and let it cool off for just a second. You don't want to put it down just yet, because you want it to be a little cool, tacky. You don't want it to be completely dry, but you don't want it to be really hot either, because that is going to serve as your pop dot. And again, just keep rolling it until it lets go, and if you have to, just take your tweezers and run it across there to sever that little string. Don't do like I just did with your finger, because that drags it across. Okay, and don't worry about these little strings, because we're going to get rid of them in just a minute anyway. And then once it becomes a little tacky but still warm, you're just going to pop that down on top of it, just like that. And see how it keeps that elevation without a pop dot. Isn't that cool? And what that's going to do is a pop dot, one, you would have a hard time getting one small enough to go down into these little bitty pieces. Okay, so that's starters. Second of all, it would be pop dots are not going to stick to these gelatos too well, even with this matte medium on here. And of course, the taller the dot, the thicker the dimension. Okay, and then now let's do the bunny. Now the bunny we're going to have to do in a couple of spots. So let's do his head right there, and then maybe drag up and do a little bit between his ears here. Now that one should be dry enough to put down. Let's come back and do him. Does anybody have any questions? Everybody's being so quiet tonight. Does that mean you're really listening? You're behaving? Okay, just a few more. Put a little dab right there. I am in love with this glue gun, guys. I just got it. It's from Sure Bonder. It's the replacement for the one that had the little tiny nozzle. They swear it has the same amount of glue coming out. They had to make the nozzle just a tad bigger on the end because of a malfunction that they were having. But I love it. It has an on-off switch on the side. And it should be hitting your retailers soon. I think Flamingo Scrap said that they're going to carry a couple of them in the store. So it just hit the market. It's a great glue gun. I love that it has an on-off switch on it. And so I don't have to reach behind my desk and unplug it every night. It does leak glue, but I think they all do. I think that's just the characteristics of a glue gun. Okay, so I'm going to put that one down now. That one, that one. And here's the trick. If for some reason you weren't quick enough and your glue has solidified before you could get back to it, all you have to do is hit it with the heat gun. And it will warm it up. Now, hit it with the heat gun and that'll melt all your little strings and make them go away. So you won't have spider webs in your project. Just don't press the flowers, because remember when you heat it up again, that's going to reactivate the heat up the glue that's below. Okay, so let's put the gelados away. We don't need those anymore. We don't need that stuff anymore. Okay, now it's time to paint up our flowers, and we're about done here. I think I want to put just a little bit more shading on these leaves down here because it's hard to see where they start and stop in this grass. So I just want to give them a little more definition. Maybe make them a little bolder. Now, before we put our flowers down, we need to do our egg. We need to do that part. So I'm going to put my tag to the side and we're going to work on that real fast. We have another egg over here. I have one that I've lost a piece to. It fell out, so I'm just going to use it to cut out the perimeter. And I'm just going to cut around the inside of this. Hang on to these little pieces because some of these negative pieces would make cute like three-dimensional elements on something else. So cute. There's so many things you can do with this die. It has so many different cuts just within it. My lovely son just entered the room. They're collecting up the trash. I think it goes to the end of the road tonight. Okay, so now I'm going to take this. Now, I want it to be gold, like the golden egg, you know, like you have at Easter time. Everybody has to hunt the golden egg. So what I want to do is Where'd my, oh, there it is. I'm looking for it off to the side. I'm just going to take my gold paint, or my gold ink pad here, and just color this up. If you didn't have the gold ink pad, you know, like I said, you could use paint, you could use just about anything you wanted to, but before I do the shimmer on it, I want it to have a gold surface. And you know what, because I'm going to see this from both sides and I don't want to fuss with the insides of those scallops, I'm going to ink both sides, because I really want to make sure that you don't see any of the white from either side. And I'm going to make sure you get it going on the right side, the up side, and I'm going to just spray that with the gold, and then that's going to give it a little shimmer, and I'll be able to put that down on top of my egg, and it'll hide all of my blemishes. So while that dries, we can wait for that to dry. Let's go ahead and color up our flowers while that's drying. Put that off to the side. Now we have our little these are called fragile flowers, and again my fingers are all sticky. Clean my hands out for a quick. Baby wipes. I think I buy more baby wipes now than I ever did when I had a baby. Do you guys feel that way? Oh, we've had some more people sign in. Welcome to my crazy channel. I'm looking at the chat if you guys have any questions. Everybody's being so quiet. Okay, so now I want to color these flowers up, and like I said at the very beginning of the show, for those of you who missed it, before I die cut these flowers out, I actually went ahead and gessoed the paper and then die cut it. So they would be I gessoed them so that they would be primed for my pit pens and my gelados before I die cut them, because there's so many fragile pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and be very careful not to get any of this on the white flour. I am going to put my gelatos on, and I'm just going to rub them in. And I want these to be a little bit lighter than the grass that's below it, so that they stand out and they have a little contrast. Remember what I said, your background is going to be a little bit darker because there's shadows, because you have so many things going on the cover, that, I mean on the subject matter, that we want our background to kind of stay close to the back, so we're going to keep it dark. All of these elements would be casting shadows. Now, on this little piece right here, I got a little bit of the green on the edges, but you know what? That's okay, because if you've ever seen a lily and it's closed up, the edges have a little bit of a green tinge to them. So I'm not going to stress over that too much on those little ones. The big ones, I really want to avoid it. But if for some reason you do happen to get a little bit too much on there, like I did right here, you know, it's such an easy mistake to fix. All you do is grab a baby wipe. Remember, it's a prepped surface. The gelatos are water-based. You just take a baby wipe, and voila, the mistake has disappeared. And I think I might remove a little bit of it off of here. But I love how easy it is to work with these. They're temporary until you seal them. So if you notice you got just a little bit too much in one spot, or you've made a mistake, you can easily wipe it off if it's prepped surface. Okay? Anybody have any other questions? Now, I want to paint the centers of my flowers, and I'm thinking that this is going to be just a little too dark. Yeah, that's a little too orange. But I'm thinking that if I come in here with the yellows might be too bright. I can probably tone this down a little bit with maybe a brown, like maybe give a little shadow with the brown. And I highly recommend not taking these itty bitty pieces out if you want to keep them, because they will be very hard to get back in, because you're not going to have a surface to glue them to. So try not to pop those out if you can when you die cut them. I'm going to color that one first. And then I'm going to come back with my brown one, because I think that orange is just a little too orange. And I'm just going to hit it, just barely touch it. Just barely, like right pokey dotty kind of things around the stamen, the into the stamens. And remember, it's a painted surface, so as long as I do it before it dries, I can come back in here and just kind of shade it up a little bit. You could also use the Tim Holtz Distress Marker in the mustard seed if you're not feeling like you've got that steady a hand for those little itty bitty pieces. You could also use your Copic markers if you wanted to. But all I'm doing is adding a couple of little tiny dots and coming straight down just a little bit. And this pen is the Nougat 178. And the yellow was the Cadmium Yellow 107. And all that does is just add a little bit of a shadow to that area. Isn't that gorgeous? Now I'm going to hold this up because I'm sure the light is probably playing tricks with you guys. But look at how gorgeous that is. Let me see if I can get it to focus. See it? Loving it. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and glue that one down. No, we're going to wait because we need to glue our egg down. Let's see if our egg is ready to go down. It is dry. It's a little tacky, so we're just going to dry it up. Don't do this in the palm of your hand. I'm crazy like that. Don't do that. I don't want anybody calling me and suing me because they burnt their hand. It doesn't take long to dry. Okay, so I'm just going to take and add a little bit of glue right here around the edges here. Boo is in manners training, and she is trying so hard to be good. I'm so proud of her. She's in there right now. They're working with her. She's being crazy. See how that just hid the imperfections where we colored over the lines? I'm just going to push that in. I just love this. This is so pretty to me. Okay, now before we add our lilies, if you had an egg sitting there in the grass, there would be a shadow. So let's come in here with our brown pit pen. This is the Nougat. And let's throw in a little shadow. My fingers are too fat to get down in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a paintbrush with a kind of firm tip. And I'm just going to work it in. I really think that that's the difference between, you know, it just adds some depth, and just when you take the time to add the shadows that way, it just kind of gives a little bit more interest and depth to everything. It's a little tiny detail that makes a wow impact. Think about how pretty this would be on a card. Someone would really, like, my grandmother would have loved to have a card like that. My mother would love to have a card like that. Okay, so there we go. It's time to add these little guys in here. So I think I want to add just a little bit more. I could do this all day, guys. If y'all get tired of me, just let me know. I just want to add just a little more depth to these lilies because they're just a little too flat. It's these little tiny details that really make the wow factor. And I feel like if I'm going to invest this much time into something, I am really going to give it the wow factor. And these pit pens will kind of seal that gelato down too, because they dry permanent. So keep that in mind. You guys with me? Y'all are being so quiet. It's almost eerie. I feel like I'm talking to myself. Okay, here we go. And now we're going to pop that right there. And I still think I need to send this to the back just a little bit. So I'm going to come back in here. I love these pit pens. I'm so addicted to them. Okay, now because I added that little touch of brown, watch what happens when I put this light green up there. It's really going to pop out. See? Gave it just enough contrast. So I want to apply some glue. I'm just going to put a little spot of hot glue like right here around the base because I really want this to be good and secure. I don't want my lilies to have any glue on them because I'm going to pop them up like I did the bunny. I'm going to put them right here, and I want to turn them. I want to turn them up just a little bit so there's some depth in here between these flowers and these flowers. And then now that I know where that's going to go, I'm going to take, probably want to go ahead and do this. I snipped this from here just so that I don't know if I need to do that one. I snipped it just so that it would be easier to put that sign behind it or in front of it and layer it. And I'm just putting a little dot of glue right there, just like I said before. I'm gonna blow on it a second, let it dry, and then place that there. Now let's do our other one really fast. We're going to do this super fast because we've already done it once, so you guys know what to do. Just grabbing that gelato, putting some color on there. Work it in with my finger. Then come back in here with this one. Just going to do it really fast. I'm not going to pay too much attention to the shading because we're getting close on time. You guys get the idea. To me, this is so relaxing, just sitting here coloring these things. I feel like I was a little child with a coloring book. I really do. Look at how fun that is. And again, as long as it's still wet, you can still blend it and kind of work it in. Let's do these little guys. Oh, you're doing it with me? Awesome. Oh, snap. I just used that orange. What was I thinking? I wasn't. That's not attractive. Ha! But you know what? It's a prep surface and it's water-based and it hasn't dried yet. So guess what? We can get it off. I love these pens. These are Aunt Tonya's magic pens. Okay. One last thing. Okay, then we're going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to slap it on. A little bit of glue. to hold it in place temporarily. Kind of want them to come up at different angles and all. Remember, we have that other piece that we have to put on here that has our title on it. Okay, so there's that for now. Now we need to go back and make our tulips all white again, and that's super easy. That piece that we cut apart right here, that we cut the tops off of, I just want to make sure my hands are good and clean. I'm going to go ahead and add my glue right to the top of this. If you want to make your bunny white, you could definitely do that too. I don't want my bunny white because I want him to have a little bit of a contrast. So I'm just going to come back, pop these little pieces out, cut the tops off of these tulips, and put them right back down. It's just that fast and simple. Okay, and I'm going to use my tweezers to do it. This one's going to go right here. And then the secret ingredient is next. We need to add our eggs because I think our stuff is probably dry for our eggs. And then our secret ingredient. And we'll be done. All these different layers are what gives it the depth too. It makes things dimensional. They have a lot more depth to them than if they were, you know, just one solid piece. You know, because you can kind of see the ridge from the one below it, so that gives it a little bit more interest. And then these two up here are the last two, and I think they're right here. Yep. So we got this one. Come on, mono, you got a little left in you. My mono's drying up. I have used it. I think that bottle has seen a better days. And see how if we went outside the lines doing this just kind of helps to cover up those edges a little bit and makes them clean. Okay, what's next? Couple more things and that's it. We need to make our sign really fast. So I have a scrap where I was die cutting the egg out. I have a little piece of scrap that I told you guys I cut already. It's right here. And I want to take my pit pen and I'm going to use the same color I did the eggs with, which was this pink. And I just want to color, no, not on that. What am I thinking? I want to color on my stamp. And again, this stamp is from the Secret Garden from Graphic 45. And I'm just going to cover that really well with my pit pen. And remember, it dries permanent. So as soon as I put this on there and it's good and dry, it is definitely permanent. You don't have to worry about it smearing or anything. And I am going to just breathe on it a little bit just to activate that ink in case it dried on the stamp. And I'm stamping challenged, guys, so if I can do it, anybody can do it. And look at that. Look at how gorgeous that is. So to finish it off, I'm just going to take and miter the corners. They probably won't be even because of the angle I'm doing it for you guys to see. I can't really see too well, but that's okay. If it was perfect, it wouldn't have character. Okay, and then I just want just a touch of an edge on here. It's perfectly perfect, and I don't like that. If you wanted to, you could spritz it with that Heidi Swap gold too, but I don't want to. I think I like the look of it being clean. Put your lid back on your Pip pen, and I'm going to add a pop dot to the top of that. If I know where I did with them, there they are. So I'm going to use my Scotch mounting tape. Now it's time to cut out our eggs and glue those down, and we are done. So all I'm going to do is hide this negative space right here. And the reason I cut those lilies, like right there, and I think that one might need to be cut, is so that I can tuck under the lily to give a little bit of depth on the sign as well. It's those little tiny details that make a huge difference, really. And it looks like my whole piece just came up because I probably didn't glue it well. So I'm just going to do this. And pull it down. There we go. Okay, see how cute that is? Okay, so now for our Easter eggs, we have this, and you know what? I have this punch that has been in my stash for 100 years. I think it was one of the very first punches I ever bought. It's from Paper Shapers. If you have a silhouette or a Cricut, you could cut some of these out too. You could probably just freehand them if you wanted to. But I love how, since we use the color shine, these are going to have a nice shimmer to them, just like Easter eggs. And you need 5 of them, or I used 5 of them. You can do whatever you want to. And then one other little trick, I'm not going to do this with all of them because I think it might take just a little bit too much time. I don't know. Is I was going to go over the edges, around the edges, just so if you saw the edge, it would be pink instead of, let's just go ahead and do it. Does anybody have any questions? Like I said, it's these little tiny details that to me can make or break a project. I mean, remember that when someone's holding it in their hand, they can see these little details. And if we're going to invest an hour and a half to 2 hours on a tag, then we should pay attention to the little details, I think. And you could do them different colors too if you wanted to. If you had scrap papers, these would be so pretty punched out of a scrap paper, and then the lame added to them. I'm a big believer in using your scraps, guys. Okay, so what I want to do with these eggs is I'm going to strategically place them so that they cover up these holes, and I kind of want them sticking into that grass a little bit. So I want them angled so that they're under those flowers. So I'm going to do just like I did on the flowers. I'm going to put a little dot of glue right here on the back. I'm going to let it dry for just a second, and then I'm going to glue it down at an angle. And if you're careful with how you glue them down, you can get a couple of them on there. You know, just keep your glue, keep your tweezers between your project, so see it pops up just like that. And you want them going in different directions too. I don't think you want them all in the same. So I really like that one, but I think I really want one down here too. So I need to decide before I glue it how I want that to look. Because I definitely want to cover up these holes. Now this hole I'm not concerned about because that's the bunny's legs. It's these little dots here that I don't want to see. And I think if I do this, and then I come back in this direction over here, like this, then I'm good. Like that. And this one might just have 4 on it, because I think one more is going to be might be a little too much. Oh, I could put 1 down in here. Well, I think we can go with 4. Let's just go with 4. So, let's go back here. We're going to add that little spot of glue there. I'm going to add, I don't want to put this going this way. Just let it sit there till it cools. You want to keep it elevated. Like I said, don't put it down. If you put it down, you're gonna have a flat egg instead of a dimensional one. And maybe if I come back over here, I could put my 5th one right there, but I don't know. I think I like it right there. Now, stop. There we go. Everything's secure. Now one more thing we need to do, and that's add our fibers up at the top, and I have me some silk seam binding over here. And I'm just going to very simple, I could spray this with a mist, but I think what I want to do is I'm going to take a touch of this brown, put it on my craft mat right there. I don't know what that is. And then maybe a touch of this pink, and I'm going to hit it with this right here, water, swirl it around. I'm using water. I could use this Color Shine and it'll give it a gold tone. Dunk it in there. It's going to give it a nice vintagey pink color. And we did it with our pit pens. How cool is that? So while this is drying, does anybody have any questions? Did you guys enjoy this tonight? Did you learn any neat tricks? So all we got to do now is, this is actually silk, so it's not going to wrinkle like seam binding would, but I still like the look of it. It's still not quite dry. If you want it to dry really fast, you can take a dry paper towel and kind of wring it into the paper towel. It'll help absorb some of it. Yes, that's a good tip, is because with these delicate dies, if you gesso the paper before you put the if you gesso the paper before you die cut it, then you will have much more success at you know, cutting those intricate things out. It's harder to gesso it after it's been cut because they're so delicate, and you find that rubbing the paintbrush over the top of those pieces actually causes it to will actually cause it to tear. So there you go. I would put probably a little more ribbon on there, but there's our tag that we made tonight. Isn't it cute? Wouldn't you love to get a card that had this on it? Wouldn't it just be gorgeous? So thank you guys for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to stick around for some questions if you guys have any. And don't forget that to go over to Die-Namites.com and check out all of these intricate, beautiful. They have a doily that they just came out with the March release too that Tonya has to have. So I will be scoping that out. There's some really beautiful, beautiful dies that were released this time. They've got a lot of them that are in my wish list right now. So I love that these dies are floral, because botanical in theme, because they can be used on just about any project. And don't forget to go check out the design team blog too, because it has they're using every other day. I think there's a project on the blog that has something, you know, just really a neat technique or a neat project being used. So you can find lots of inspiration there. So if you guys decide to make this card tag or use any of these techniques you learned tonight, please make sure that you tag me on Facebook or in YouTube, either one, and let me see what you guys create. I love to see your project shares. Last class I had several people who sent me private messages with their layouts that they had created. So thank you guys again for all your support. I really appreciate it, and it was a fun class tonight. You guys must have been learning a lot because you were quiet.